Hey, what's going on, guys? The Horror Man back putting a positive spin on Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. Unrated producer's cut. Fans of the Halloween franchise, and horror fans in general, know how different the producer's cut of Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, is from the theatrical cut. They are practically completely different films. It's always been sort of interesting to me how the producer's cut receives so much hate, yet people seem to love the theatrical version. Now, I'm not saying I don't love the theatrical cut as well, because I do, for nostalgic reasons. But objectively, as a film, it's a mess. The director himself has admitted that. It's a complete, chaotic mess. The theatrical version is so poorly edited. There are just things that don't make any sense. There were also scenes unnecessarily cut from the theatrical version. What we got in theaters ends up telling a very different story than what was initially intended with the producer's cut. Test audiences saw the producer's cut, though, and didn't like it. But it wasn't even the storyline they didn't like. Their main complaint was there was too much Dr. Loomis, and they found him boring. That, to me, is a complete slap in the face and total disrespect for the legend who was Donald Pleasence, especially since this was his last film before his death. A lot of people think the movie was changed because of his passing, but that is simply not true. With removing so many of Loomis's scenes, the entire script had to be rewritten. Ultimately, it led to the theatrical cut not really making any sense. This video isn't a negative spin, though, about the theatrical cut. It's a positive spin about the producer's cut. So let me get to what I love about this version. First of all, it actually does make sense. This cut feels like a finished film, whereas the theatrical cut almost feels like an unfinished work print. And despite loving that theatrical cut myself, I will say this. I truly believe that if the producer's cut was the version released in theaters back in 1995, people would love this cut just as much as they love the theatrical cut. This version, in my opinion, gets so much hate because it's different. Not necessarily different in general, just different than what people were used to watching back when this movie was released. Nostalgia blurs a lot of things, and because of that, we find ourselves believing movies are better than they actually are. There's nothing wrong with that. We all do it. The issue I have is when people hate something like this, the producer's cut, a different version of the film, simply because it's not what we're used to. Objectively, this is a better film. As much as I like the sort of rock and roll synthesized music of the theatrical cut, the producer's cut actually features the classic Halloween score. It's used appropriately, too, and helps to build suspense in certain scenes that weren't as suspenseful in the theatrical version. With this being the original cut of the film, it's also edited properly. It's a much more linear story. It's much more fleshed out, and it feels complete. This is a simple thing, but it's a positive. I love the title screen of the producer's cut, because the thorn symbol is used as the A in Halloween. It just looks really cool. As much as I like Paul Rudd and think he's great in both versions of the film, I do prefer the narration from Dr. Loomis in the beginning of the movie. The kills in the producer's cut are not as gory as they are in the theatrical version, but they are more realistic. The mask, which is the same in both cuts, is amazing. I personally think it's the scariest mask in the entire franchise. Both versions also maintain an awesome Halloween atmosphere. I especially enjoy the Halloween festival scenes. I know a lot of people don't like the Curse of Thorn storyline, but I'm glad they didn't completely abandon it in this cut of the film. It actually has a point here, and takes the franchise in a different direction. That for me is a positive. This feels like a good finale to the trilogy of Halloween 4, 5, and Curse. Not only is this a fitting ending to that trilogy of films, but this could have been the finale of the entire franchise if they wanted. The ending of the producer's cut gives them that option. It's a cliffhanger, yes, but it's one of those cliffhangers that could also serve as a conclusion. I love that we get a lot more Loomis in the producer's cut, which, again, is the big thing missing from the theatrical version. With this being his final role, I believe the more we see of Donald Pleasance, the better. I've always loved the scene of Beth telling Tim the story of the Myers house. That's in both versions of the film, but it's still a positive. Of course, so is her nude scene. Look out for the boogeyman. A lot of people take issue with the runestones, but, I mean, come on. That takes up maybe a minute of the entire film. They're important, but they're briefly seen on screen. Kara Strode is, unfortunately, probably my least favorite final girl in the Halloween franchise, so the fact that we get less of her manly scream in the producer's cut is a positive. I've mentioned it a couple of times already, but I'll say it again because it's so significant. Things actually make sense in the producer's cut that don't make sense in the theatrical version. Let's see, what else? I prefer Beth's death in the producer's cut than in the theatrical cut. It's not in slow motion in this version, which I thought was an odd decision for the theatrical cut. I really like the scene of Kara being stalked at the college. I'm not sure why that was removed. I prefer the little girl's rendition of singing It's Raining Red as opposed to just saying it. There are some really good shots of Michael's mask that are only in scenes in the producer's cut. With it being one of the best masks in the franchise, that's a positive. I like that it's made clear in this version who the father of Jamie's baby is, and yes, it is Michael. For those of you who try to say it's not stated, well, watch the producer's cut again. I like that the relationship between Loomis and Wynn is better developed in the producer's cut. That's definitely a positive. Again, the more Loomis, the better. While the third act in the producer's cut may not be as exciting as the theatrical cut, and definitely not as violent, I feel it's somehow paced better. And I much prefer the final scene in this version. I like this switcheroo better than the switcheroo between H2O and Resurrection. It's a shame Halloween fans don't give this one a fair chance. Ironically, before it was officially released on Blu-ray, the producer's cut of Halloween 6 was one of the most highly sought-after bootlegs. It's pretty strange how people seemed to love the producer's cut before they could officially own it. It just goes to show you the warped minds of some people. As much of a mess as it is, you're free to love the theatrical cut of The Curse of Michael Myers. I do too. But that doesn't mean you have to hate the producer's cut. I'll stand by what I said earlier. This is objectively the better film. But hey, you don't have to agree. This is just my positive spin. Be sure to check out Jason's as well. To which hated Halloween sequel will we next give a positive spin? Check back soon to find out. Until then, what do you think of the producer's cut of Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers? Comment below and let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit that thumbs up and, be kind, subscribe.